بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، النبي الأمي الزكي الطاهر صلى الله عليه وسلم، وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، ومن صار على نهجهم إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا، وانفعنا بما علمتنا، وزدنا علما، وألحقنا بعبادك الصالحين، وأصلح لنا شأننا كله، ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين. ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما، فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. اللهم آمين يا رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one deserving of praise alone, Jalla wa ala, and the peace and blessings and salutations upon the one sent as a mercy to mankind, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to resurrect us with our dear beloved Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and most importantly make us from those who hold on to his sunnah and his guidance and his character and his morals, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla with his profound names and attributes, Jalla wa ala, to admit us into his mercy, for indeed there is no success except those who have been bestowed by the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to teach us what is beneficial. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us from what he has taught us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us from those who put utmost trust and reliance in Allah Azza wa Jalla with all of our affairs, and make us realize how much we are in need of our Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. هذه الغاية العظمى. One of the main things that the servant can attain is understanding his dire or her dire need in Allah Azza wa Jalla. And this is from the pillars of servitude. This is from the pillars of being a servant. That's where we are, right? So, alhamdulillah, we're servants, sah? Or do we have freedom? We have freedom. We have freedom, sah, Shaykh? We have freedom. Inshallah. The correct answer is we don't have freedom. This is reality. We're not going to be from the ones who come here and sugarcoat what we talk about, right? Just so we can align with today's norms and customs and lingo and principles and methodologies. Islam is the way of life. And Islam in itself means what? To do what? To submit. You know what it means to submit? Meaning your desires, your wants, your needs, its priority is to be in alignment with the one who created you. Your will is fully submitted to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's what it is. And that makes sense logically. You were put here by him subhanahu. You would not be here if it wasn't for him Jalla wa ala. Sah. And you're going to return back to who? And when you return back to Allah Azza wa Jalla, what's he going to do? You're going to be questioned. Yes or no? Everything you did, you're going to be questioned. لذلك قال الحسن البصري وليعلم أن كل مسؤول وإذا علمت أنك مسؤول فعليك أن تعلي كل سؤال جواب. Hassan Basri said, it's upon the servant to know that he's going to be asked. From your basic pillars in Allah Azza wa Jalla and the hereafter is what? That you're going to be asked, yes or no? You're going to be asked about everything you did, minute or major. Yes? Okay. So if you're aware that this is going to happen without a doubt, you'll be asked about everything, so you better prepare and answer for every question that's coming your way. That's what it means to be aware and conscious of Allah Azza wa Jalla. That before you speak and you act, you tell yourself, I'm going to meet Allah Azza wa Jalla with this. Is this bettering my chances of Jannah? Or is it going to further me away from Allah Azza wa Jalla? Is this something that I don't mind my Lord bringing forth and mentioning to me in front of all of humanity? Because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. The things that you may be doing now behind closed doors, no one sees it except who? But there's going to be a day where the secrets will be exposed, yes or no? يَوْمَ تُبَلَسْ سَرَارٍ. On the day where all the secretive actions will become what? Apparent, exposed. إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ اللَّهِ, except those whom Allah Azza wa Jalla has mercy upon. May Allah Azza wa Jalla cover us in this dunya. May Allah Azza wa Jalla cover us in the hereafter. طيب. Before we enter, inshallah, before inshallah ta'ala we begin, inshallah, I wanted to, and I think we should do this before every class, because the reality of purifying the soul is not just a step-by-step process, right? And I know the manner that the book has been written in a way where, okay, 10 steps, 10 principles in purifying the soul and cleansing the soul. It's not that simple. This journey of purifying the soul and cleansing your internal state, it is a lifestyle you must embody. We understand this. We have somewhat of an awareness of how complex the soul is. All we need to know is this soul is what's causing us to do whatever we're doing right now. All this movement, the ability to hear and smell and taste and function and think and breathe is due to what? After Allah Azza wa Jal? Due to the soul, this nafs, that no scientist on the face of this earth can explain to you. No one can tell you what this nafs is. No one can tell you. Right? All you know is it's what is behind running you today. Sah? This soul needs to be aligned with Allah Azza wa Jal, which means your outlook on life, the way you interpret life, your perspective of life, your understanding of life needs to be in alignment with what Allah Azza wa Jalla has already decreed. Okay? So one of the things, or one of the methods that we should busy ourselves in doing, not just in class, but even as well on our own time, especially when you're secluded. The servant needs to have a point in his day or her day where he or she is secluded with his Lord or with her Lord. Understand? It's very important. Okay? In these times of seclusion, from the greatest methods you can take away is pondering over the reality of the dunya and understanding the status of the hereafter. Does this make sense? Pondering over the reality of the dunya and understanding the status of the hereafter. Meaning the reality of the dunya in the eyes of Allah. Because who created the dunya? Allah Azza wa Jalla. So no one else's perspective matters other than whose? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah is the one that created it. Allah is the one that facilitated this dunya that we're busy with. This dunya that we have traded for the akhirah. That's what we have done. We have traded the akhirah with this dunya. Ajib, right? That's what we're doing. Every time we put the dunya first, every time we put your job first, every time you put your salary first over Allah Azza wa Jalla, it seems like it's something that you're already geared to do. Right? But that's what you're doing in reality. Rather, what's even worse is when you have put the prohibitions and the boundaries of Allah Azza wa Jalla over the way of life you need to be embodying, you are selling the akhirah with the dunya. And this dunya is haqira. This dunya is subhanallah. Like the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Sahih Muslim, alayhi salatu wasalam, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, where he says, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Wallahi, mad dunya fil akhirati. Look, I want everyone to listen to this hadith. This is a principle when it comes to understanding the reality of the dunya and the status of the hereafter. And it is the building block in what will change the way you view both. In the way you view the dunya and the way you view the akhirah. And when you change the way you view the dunya and the way you view the akhirah, and it reflects on your actions, you start to live in accordance to attaining taqwa. Okay? So let's look at what the Prophet ﷺ advised us. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام والله ما الدنيا في الآخرة. He said, by Allah, the dunya, if it were to be compared to the akhirah, can the two be compared, yes or no? No. لا يستويان مثلا. No way the two are to be compared. right? But the Prophet يضرب الأمثال يضرب الأمثلة صلى الله عليه وسلم لكي نفهم ونفقه. Prophet said he brings these examples that we're able to relate to and comprehend so that we can gain a better understanding. This is one of the main teaching methods of the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah. Right? So he says, Wallahi, the dunya compared to the akhirah is the example of the individual who takes his finger or takes her finger and places it in the sea. Not the hand, just the finger. Imagine with me. Imagine a sea, imagine a lake, imagine the beach. Imagine how massive the water looks, yes? Now imagine the servant, the individual, takes his or her finger and places that finger in the what? In that sea. Okay? When you lift the finger, whatever water remains, or whatever water, if anything, it picked up from dipping the finger in the sea, that's the dunya compared to the akhirah. The akhirah is the ocean, and the dunya is whatever your finger was able to pick up from the sea. Ajib. This analogy is ajib. How the Prophet ﷺ, with words and terminology and principles that we're able to understand. We see the ocean, we see the sea. If you were told that you were able to choose, not out of force, not out of what was written for you, you're able to choose between the entirety of the ocean and whatever your one finger picks up from the water, what are you going to choose? If you have the ability to choose, it's in your hands. What are you choosing? The ocean. Can you even compare the two? No. Ajib. This is what the dunya is to the akhirah. Subhanallah. And that finger, and whatever water that finger picked up, look how low and belittled that is. That's not even significant in the eyes of anyone. Right? That is being sold for the ocean. People are trading that for the ocean. People are trading the akhirah for the dunya. لأجل الدنيا يسخط الرب يرتكب المعاصي والفواحش والموبقات ينقطع الأرحام يعصي الرب. Due to this dunya, how despicable this dunya is, how low it is, والعياذ بالله. We're choosing this, and we are choosing to risk our akhirah. We're deciding to disobey Allah, cross His boundaries, cut off our ties and our lineage, right? Indulge in the fawahish and the evil deeds. And we are told about the akhirah and its reality. But there is one catch. It is supposed to be difficult. When we speak about it like this, of course, it seems to be like a logical thing and an easy decision that one can make. You have the option A and option B, the ocean, and whatever your finger picks up, you're going to choose the ocean. Sah? But option A is something that you have not seen nor encountered. There's no proof of it around, which is Jannah, which is the hereafter. Do we have any proof of Jannah around us today? All you have is words. And you're forced to believe in these words that describe what is Jannah and what Jannah holds. That's a hard task. It's a hard task to go ahead and gear yourself to be motivated and passionate about something that you have not seen. Rather, your whole life is meant to be dedicated to to someone you have not seen, and a reward that you have no idea what it looks like. That's hard. It's difficult. That's why Iman is valuable. That's why Iman is something that, if one has attained it, they are from the greatest people in the eyes of Allah. From the greatest people in the eyes of Allah. May Allah make us from these people. Why did I mention this? Because this is mentioning these kind of principles or these kind of ahadith or ayat that talk about the reality of the dunya, right? And the status of the akhirah, and what the believer needs to be doing as far as preparing for the akhirah. This is what helps us change our outlook on life. This is what helps us change how we move, how we live, how we interpret life, and this ends up changing our morals, our character, our behavior, our conduct, our actions, everything. Right? By beginning, by understanding the reality of the dunya. And one will not do so until they busy themselves with what the Quran has put our way. The Quran, from the main topics and the themes of the Quran, is teaching you what? The reality of the dunya. And from one of the main topics and the themes of the Quran is also teaching you and describing to the akhirah. And it's been prepared for the people who abide by the way of Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's from the main maqasid of the Quran. Agreed? And we don't need to go far. Go to Juz' Amma. And those who sit with me, or those who hear me speak, I always mention Juz' Amma. From 80% of Juz' Amma is Al-Hathu fil Akhirah. 80% of Juz' Amma. Go to Surah Al-Naba down. Surah Al-Naba, Nazi'at, Abasa, Takwir. All these surah. Almost every single surah is describing to an aspect of the Akhirah. Do it. Test me to it. Go home tonight. Do it. Make it something that you try to acquaint yourself with before next class. Open Juz' Amma. Alhamdulillah, many of us have some of these surah memorized, if not all of the surah in Juz' Amma, walillahi alhamd. Let me get acquainted with these surah that I hear often in the salah, that I choose to read because due to how easy they are and how small they are and the amount of verses. Go ponder over Juz' Amma and look how much Juz' Amma is teaching you about the Akhirah and doing the best it possibly can and pushing you away from being attached to the dunya. That's all Juz' Amma is doing. Subhanallah. From the greatest maqasid of the Quran. May Allah Azza wa Jalla cleanse our souls and allow us to be from those who prepare and prioritize the hereafter. And to make us from those who do not let the dunya get in the way of reality. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Tayyib. Inshallah ta'ala, today we will enter into the second of these 10 principles on our journey to purifying and cleansing the souls. And the second principle that we mentioned and we briefly discussed last class is the dua. Number one, the first thing that the author brought as far as what the servant must come with in order to begin this journey of cleansing and purifying the soul is getting to know Allah, understanding the oneness of Allah and attaching oneself to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Because the soul is in the hands of Allah. The soul that you're trying to clean and purify is something that Allah has created. And Allah is responsible for facilitating for, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it only makes sense that the soul begins by getting to know its creator, its owner. That's the first thing. And we talked about this extensively. The second thing that the servant must begin doing when they realize the importance of purifying the soul and its necessity to attain success in the dunya and the akhirah, the second thing you must come with is a dua. ولذلك قيل الدعاء مفتاح كل خير. The dua, the supplication, is the key to all good. روي عن ابن الشخير عليه رحمة الله أحد السلف, one of the tabi'een, Ibn al-Shakhir. And this is brought in the book of Imam al-Dhahabi, where he mentions and he says that Ibn al-Shakhir says, I'm going to paraphrase what he says regarding a dua. He says, I sat and I ta'ammaltu al-khayra kullah. He said, I sat and I pondered on all the forms of khayr that this dunya has to offer. And I came to a conclusion that the only thing that is khayr is what has to do with worship. As-salah, as-sawm, al-nafaqah, al-hajj, al-umrah. He realized that the only thing that this dunya offers that is khayr is what is attached with the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Okay? That's one thing. And then he wanted to go ahead and filter out this list even more. When we talk about worship, that's a fat list, yes? It's a grand list. So many things can fall into this category of ibadah. Rather, even some of the things that we may consider, that we may do on a daily basis, that can turn into ibadah if the intention is there. So this is already a hefty list. So he said, rahimahullah, he said, then I decided to find out from the ibadah, what is the greatest form of ibadah? And I came to a common denominator when I looked at every single act of worship. Right? Every single act of worship has one common denominator. And that common denominator is, before with dua, you guys are jumping the gun. Everyone's jumping on. Before dua. Before the dua, the common denominator that every ibadah carries is that it is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jalla. If you're able to pray, if you have the tawfiq to pray, who gave it to you? Allah. If you have the ability to fast, who gave it to you? If you have the ability to come and start learning the Quran, who gave it to you? If you have the ability to take out your wallet and go spend for the sake of Allah, who gave it to you? So al-khayra kulla biyadi man? Biyadillah. Anything that is known to be ibadah, it is not from your intellect. It is from who? It's from Allah subhanahu. So based on this conclusion that he came with, he said So therefore, the greatest thing that this dunya has to offer is what? Ad-du'a. Because if ibadah is the greatest thing that I can busy myself with in this dunya, in the couple of hours that I'm here, we agree. Any discrepancy, guys? Anything better than ibadah in this dunya? Yusuf, what do you think? You're just scratching your head? Do you agree? The greatest thing you can do is ibadah, صح? طيب. And this is sahih. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام قال صلى الله عليه وسلم الدنيا ملعونة وملعون ما فيها إلا ذكر الله وحلق الذكر ومجالس العلم وكما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet said that this dunya is cursed and everything within it is cursed except what? The remembrance of Allah, ibadah, and the gatherings of knowledge, where Allah Azza wa Jalla's religion and faith is being discussed and taught. These are the only two things that have barakah. Why? Because they do not cut off once you enter to the next life. Everything else cuts off. Your salary cuts. Your assets cut. The luxurious lifestyle cuts. Everything comes to an end. Except what? Except your ibadah. Except what was done for the sake of your akhirah. قال سبحانه وتعالى في محكم آياته ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق. قاعدة جليلة. A great principle when it comes to understanding the dunya and the akhirah. Allah says, what is with you guys, what has remained with you guys, meaning the dunya. That is with you guys. All we have access to right now is what? Dunya. We have no taste of the hereafter. So Allah says, what I have left with you guys, meaning the dunya, eventually is going to come to an end. It's going to perish. What you are trading for the hereafter, which is eternal bliss, that's going to perish. Allah is telling you straightforward. And what has been prepared with Allah, وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ, that remains. That's forever. That's eternal. Ajib. So this is the Prophet ﷺ talking about what? The dunya. Right? The best thing you could do is ibadah. And the one who gives you the tawfiq to the ibadah is Allah Azza wa Jalla. Therefore, the key to all good is dua. The key to all good is dua. What is the proof for this? Every single day. Every rak'ah that you pray, in the same verse, they're not two different verses. In the same verse, you combine between telling Allah Azza wa Jalla, affirming that Allah Azza wa Jalla is the one that you worship, you've been created to worship Him alone, and then you ended by saying, وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ قَارَنَ بَيْنَ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالْإِسْتِعَانَةِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla in this verse of Surah Al-Fatiha is saying what? You alone, Ya Allah, we worship, and you alone we seek assistance in. In other words, this worship that you've been created to do, you will not be able to attain it, except that it is through the assistance and aid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you guys understand that? You guys see the significance of إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ? This is how we properly understand this now. This is why Allah Azza wa Jalla put them in the same verse. Right? So the greatest thing that you can busy yourself with is dua. Ad-dua. Right? What is a dua? Now we have got to get into the technical groove of things. Right? So we need to learn. It's not just stories, and we need to learn. Sah? What is a dua? Linguistically, a dua, generally speaking, is the action of asking. To ask. To ask someone. To request something. This is what dua means, generally. الدعاء المسألة الطلب المسألة. This is what it is generally. When we speak about dua in the lenses of the religion, okay, there are two types of dua. الدعاء على ضربين. Dua is of two types. دعاء المسألة ودعاء العبادة. Right? We'll say this. We'll call it, the first type of dua is general supplication. And the second type is specific supplication or specified supplication. There's general supplication, or let's just forget English. General dua and specified dua. Write it down and I'll explain. اثنين. We have general supplication and specified supplication. Du'a'ul ibadah, which is general supplication, this is the act of coming with any act of worship. Any act of worship that you come with, it is known to be du'a. Ever thought about it like that? Every single ibadah that you do is a form of supplication. What do you guys think? Everything, whether it's fasting, whether it's salah, whether it's obedience to the parents, whether it's giving to the needy, whether it's feeding the orphans, whatever it may be, whether it's supporting your family, whether it's reading Quran, whether it's the night prayer, whether it's the pilgrimage, name any ibadah. Everything that is considered to be ibadah in the eyes of Allah, it is a form of dua. Why? Who can tell me why? Why? Simply because every act of worship that you do, no matter what it is, why are you doing it? Because you're seeking something from Allah, yes or no? When you worship Allah Azza wa Jalla, what are you seeking? You're seeking His pleasure. When you're worshiping Allah, what are you seeking? His mercy. When you worship Allah, what are you seeking? His Jannah. When you worship Allah, what are you seeking? Him pardoning you. When you worship Allah, what are you seeking? You want Him to further you away from the punishment of the fire. All these are things that you are requesting from Allah. And that is the ulterior motive behind any ibadah that you're doing. That's what it means to have an intention in worshiping Allah Azza wa Jalla. So in reality, every ibadah, even if it's in essence, the ibadah that you're carrying out doesn't involve you raising your hands and supplicating, but that worship that you're carrying out is a form of asking Allah something. Does that make sense? Do we see how every ibadah is dua? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says what? في الحديث الصحيح قال صلى الله عليه وسلم الدعاء هو العباد. The Prophet says dua is ibadah, meaning anything that is ibadah is considered to be dua. Anything that is ibadah is considered to be dua. Because every ibadah is done seeking the pleasure of Allah. It is done expressing the gratitude and the love that you have for Allah Azza wa Jalla. Seeking His reward, seeking His mercy, seeking His bounty, seeking Him to increase you in your dunya and hereafter. Understand, guys? You see how ibadah is dua. This is a dua al-ibadah, the general dua. The specified supplication or the specified dua, this is the dua that we are acquainted with today. That is when there is a need that arises in your life, and this causes you to raise your hands and say, Ya Allah, provide for me X. Ya Allah, protect me from that. This is the specified dua. This is a specific form of dua. Right? And it involves you taking your needs to the facilitator Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even that is from the greatest acts of worship you could do. From the greatest acts of worship you can do is taking your needs to Allah. Is taking your needs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's go into what the Imam says. Inshallah ta'ala. We'll read what he says, we'll translate on spot, and we'll commentate if we need further elaboration. Okay? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال المصنف رحمه الله. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ليس شيء أكرم على الله تعالى من الدعاء. The Imam, may Allah Azza wa Jalla preserve him, began this chapter of dua and its correlation with purifying the soul by mentioning a very important hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And this hadith is where the Prophet ﷺ says and states that there is nothing more beloved. There's nothing that Allah Azza wa Jalla appreciates more than the servant raising his or her hands for Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is from the greatest things that Allah Azza wa Jalla can see His servant doing, is that the servant is put in a conflict, is put in a scenario, is put in a tight predicament. And due to that difficulty, he or she raises his or her hands to Allah alone, knowing that no one can get me out of this except Allah, knowing that no one can provide me this except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And when Allah sees that the servant has came with this mindset, and the servant has sincerely directed his or her direction towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and internally the servant acknowledges that my affair is in the hands of Allah, hence this is why I'm raising my hands, this is the happiest Allah gets, subhanahu. Why? Right now I'm just giving you guys facts, but there's a why. Right? Why is this from the greatest things that you can do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Good, you're paying attention. Because dua, when you raise your hands or when you're in sujood and prostration and you are sitting there asking Allah Azza wa Jalla, bringing forth every need in your life and you're relaying it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is you expressing your dire need of Allah. And that's what the Imam says right here. فقال المصنف, the Imam continues and he says, فالدعاء من أفضل العبادات عند الله. Supplication, dua, is from the greatest acts of worship in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لأن فيه إظهارا للعجز والافتقار. Why? He continues and he mentions and he says, because within supplication, within the act of supplicating, it is mixed with the individual, with the servant, expressing his or her dire need of Allah, breaking his or herself down for Allah. When you ask someone for something, this shows how much you're in need of them, no matter how little it is. You going to someone else asking them for something shows you're in need of them for that specific aspect. Understand? Does that make sense? So that shows some sort of authority that they have over you, some sort of virtue that they have over you. They have something that you do not have, and you are in need of it at that moment. So you going to them shows how much you're in need of them. Does that make sense? That's the general concept of asking. Okay? والدعاء, and the dua is from the greatest ibadat that go ahead and show the specific quality.
وفيه أيضا الاعتراف بقوة الله جل وعلا وقدرته وغنائه وإغنائه وكبريائه فضلا من فضلاء أحبابه وأوليائه.
Within supplicating, you also find the benefit of acknowledging the greatness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So here are a couple of benefits that we're extracting from dua. One is that it shows it is an ibadah that expresses the servant's dire need of Allah. And this is what you need to be a proper servant, by the way. For the servant, for servitude to be properly solidified in the system of the individual, he or she must come to an understanding between his or herself that he or she is in need of Allah Azza wa Jalla. You are nothing without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you busying yourself with dua helps you get to that point. Mentally, helps you get to that point. Physically, right? You need to be live every single day. You need to be living, understanding that you're in need of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And if you want further understanding of this, go look at some of the supplications or some of the adhkar, some of the things that you are prescribed to say during certain segments of your day. Look at the things that you say when you wake up, the things that you say when you leave the house, the things that you say when you enter the vehicle, the things that you say when you enter the place, the marketplace. Look at these supplications on your own time. Okay, even the supplication after the salah, look how each of these supplications show the greatness and the magnificence of Allah Azza wa Jalla and how much you need Him. That's the point of all these ad'iyah that we say. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله. All these supplications that we say, that we're prescribed to say, that our dear Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say on a daily basis, throughout the different segments and affairs of his life. These are not just words. These are words that affirm something. They affirm two things: the greatness of Allah, the virtue that He has over you, and the need that you are, the need that you have towards Him. That's what you are as a servant. End of the day, you will never be a true servant except that you have actualized this and you have acknowledged it and you live in accordance to it. And from the greatest things that you can do to help you get there is a dua. Okay? So these are right now what we just mentioned, some of the takeaways from the wisdoms of dua. We can title it like this as well. These are some of the wisdoms of the legislation of supplicating to Allah Azza wa Jalla. طيب.
The Imam continues and says, وَلَهُ أَثَرٌ عَظِيمٌ فِي فَتْحِ أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ.
And he says that it has a great effect towards opening the doors of success. Because for success to come your way, it is by the permission of your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want success in your business. You want success in your studies. You want success in supporting your family. You want success in whatever it may be, in studying the religion, in memorizing the Quran, whatever it is that we have nowadays. Right? If you want success, that success is not based on the means that you take. It's not based on the resources that you have around you. Those are just means. Those are you just taking the means to attain your goal. But the the main principle when it comes to attaining success is that it's in the hands of Allah. If Allah wills success for me in this affair, it will happen. Therefore, from the greatest keys to success is dua. Simple as that. We're understanding this, ya ikhwan? These all seem to be principles that we perhaps learned at a young age or going to Quran school, but we need to not just understand these concepts, but we need to actualize them. We need to understand this necessity in my life. Like we said, what we're learning right now is not just a book and a blueprint and a list of A, B, C, D and just some information I'm going to store in my head. We're trying to get to a point where we change our lifestyle, ya ikhwan. And to change your lifestyle, it necessitates that you change your mindset. Yes or no? Let's give an example. Nowadays, especially alhamdulillah has blessed us to be in a progressing society, a modernized society, it's very accessible to be an entrepreneur. if you want to be a multi-millionaire, in this country, it's possible, right? It's much more possible than it is anywhere else in the world. Agreed? Yes, there's some difficulty, but the access that you have here and the resources that you have here does not compare to anything else. Yes or no? Now, everyone's shaking their head because they understand the lingo I'm talking now. I'm talking money, now everyone understands. Okay. طيب, let's say you come from a lifestyle where you think very linearly. Do you guys understand what I mean by that? You think very linearly. Like, I work 1 hour, I get $10 for that hour. I work 2 hours, I get $20. I work 1 month, I get $5,000. That means thinking linearly. Okay? You do something, you get something in return. That's linear thinking. Okay? That's how we're geared to think, unfortunately, in this country. Get out of the loop, guys. Okay? Now, say you want to change your lifestyle. And changing your lifestyle is you want to be someone who is a lot more rich, able to go ahead and have that financial freedom, able to pay off your debts and pay back your parents and have them live comfortably. After years of them trying to go ahead and give you a comfortable lifestyle, you want to pay them back. And that requires some sort of financial comfort. Okay? This involves you changing your lifestyle. For you to change your lifestyle, right? And to make that money and to be an entrepreneur and put something in the works or services in the works where you are able to make your money multiply, you need to change the way you think. You need to change the way you think. Yes or no? I don't have social media, but I know nowadays there's so many people who try to influence people and teach them how to go ahead and make money. And if you want to go ahead and leave your 9 to 5, right? You know what I'm saying? Join my seminar for free. That's what they have online now. Everyone is teaching you how to make money, right? From the greatest, if you notice, they're not over here teaching you tactics necessarily. They are, but the main thing that they're instilling in your head is changing the way you think. If you want to be able to make money and have your money multiply and have your money work for you in other hands, you need to change the way you understand money and how you spend your money and how you save your money and how you invest your money. You need to change that. That's called, you want a different lifestyle, and that requires you changing your mindset. Understand? See the correlation? You want Jannah, you want paradise, you know that this world is a deception, you know that this world is meant to go ahead and just deter you from reality, and you understand that the akhirah is what you need to be investing into. You need to change the way you think. You need to change the way you think and the way you look at life. And I always mention this, the people of the past, when you read their biographies, you are just astonished how they interpreted life. When they go through a calamity, how calm they are. When a blessing comes their way, how they are able to go ahead and attribute it to Allah Azza wa Jal, how much they relied on Allah, how much they trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how optimistic they were. Optimistic at the times of hardship and the times of adversity even. That's a lifestyle, it's a mindset. They changed that. That's what Tazkiyat an-Nafs is. Everything that we're talking about, take a step back and tell yourself that these steps that we're going over, it is what is going to aid me in changing the way I think and look at life. And dua is from these greatest tools, ya ikhwan. When dua is by your side and dua becomes the thing that you refer to, immediately when the calamity arises, when the hardship comes your way, when the time of adversity comes and trickles down, the first thing you do is dua. Rather than text your buddy, rather than text your mom, rather than go to your mentor, the first thing you do is raise your hands. You have improved in your interpretation of life. You guys understand? These are from the benefits of dua. When we talk about these things, we need to talk about how we practically take them away and apply them. Okay? If you have any questions or something starts to not make sense, raise your hand. But if you're going to ask something that's going to tangent off, please keep it to the end. Okay? But if I say something that doesn't make sense, it didn't add up, that's due to probably my lack of English, right? Or my lack of comprehension, ask and we can clarify together. طيب. Let's continue inshallah.
فقال المصنف رحمه الله وقد وعد الله سبحانه وتعالى من دعاه والتجأ إليه بالإجابة.
Ajib. And from the first things that the Imam mentions about the dua, and this should entice everyone in the room. This should cause you to walk away from the masjid thinking, how do I make dua a part of my life now? When you hear this benefit. He says, rahimahullah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised that whomever comes with supplication and expressing his or her need towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has promised that individual an answer. Imagine And it's like, imagine if your CEO comes to you and says, whatever you're looking for, ask, it shall be granted. Right? Whatever you're looking for, ask, it shall be granted. What is one of these make-believe characters that they taught us here in this country? It's supposed to take your wish. So, no, not Santa Claus. No, Santa Claus. You don't wish Santa Claus. Santa Claus just comes with gifts, right? What's Tooth Fairy? What's Tooth Fairy? And then the tooth under the pillow. And then what happens? You make a wish, right? So basically, birthday, sah. You blow the candle. You blow the candle, and the significance of blowing the candle, you get what? Wish. This is what they teach you, sah? A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah, this is what they teach you. Ajib. I used to give my parents hard time. Oh my goodness. Allah understand. Santa, Tooth Fairy, birthday. May Allah pardon us. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah for Islam. طيب, if someone of great status and authority in this dunya, and no matter how much status and authority they may have, it's still restricted. Okay? We know that as Muslims. Someone of authority comes to you and says, whatever you're looking for, I'm going to grant it to you. Right? Now you're gonna think, and now you're gonna ponder, and now you're going to express with utmost sincerity and integrity to this person what you're looking for. Right? Because this person has status that you can physically see, has authority, and can go ahead and make happen whatever you're asking for. Right now we're talking about Allah, Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم, سبحانه, له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. This is Allah Azza wa Jalla. Ayatul Kursi, Allah is telling you about His sovereignty, about His kingdom, about His ownership. Allah is saying, to Him belongs everything in the heavens and the earth. He does not sleep, nor does He rest. He facilitates everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing occurs except that it is done by His permission, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the all-living, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that never dies, subhanahu. These are all traits that you cannot attribute to any creation. And this is what Allah has. And Allah is not, you don't just understand that Allah carries this authority, but Allah is telling you, you ask me, I will give you. Allah says in the Quran, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. أَلَيْسَ هَذِي بِشَارَةٌ? Is this not glad tidings? Confused. I'm confused. And that what's going to confuse me even more is that we're going to listen to these ayat, these verses, and the reality of dua, and then once we exit the masjid, once an issue comes in our lives, the first thing we're going to do is go to the khalq. First thing we're going to do is going to go to the creation. We're going to go to moms, we're going to go to pops, we're going to go to my friend, my best friend. We're going to tell him all of my problems, tell her all of my problems. I lost my job, someone fix my resume, who can put me on with this job. This is what we're going to do. We have so much trust in the what? In the creation. And then when times get hard, we make dua. And when we make dua, we do it out of tajruba. We do it out of just trying it. Maybe when I make dua, something will happen. We don't do it with certainty. You know that? You ever think about it like that? When you supplicate to Allah, it's usually the last resort, right? Times are getting very tough. And we don't accompany our dua with certainty that Allah is going to answer. What did the Prophet say to you in the dua? إِذَا سَأَلْتُ قال صلى الله عليه وسلم اسألوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم قاعدة, principle when it comes to your dua. So Allah is telling you, when you ask about me, understand that I am near. I answer the call of the servant as long as he or she calls. So the only precondition for your dua being accepted is what? You doing what? It's not even you being pious, or you being pure, or you being free from sin. It is just you coming with the su'al. You coming with your needs. Bring your needs to Allah and come with one other pillar. What is that pillar? You are certain that Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to answer. That's what the Prophet told us. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم اسألوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. Ask Allah whilst you are certain that He's going to answer you. What other way of life tells you to think like this? When you have Allah by your side, when you're certain that Allah is your guardian, what's stopping you other than death? What's stopping you? But the most prestigious man to walk, there's only so much they can do for you. And there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. Eventually they're going to flunk out. Eventually they're not going to be able to provide something that you're looking for. The answer is in the hands of Allah. When Allah Azza wa Jalla, and this is to also get a further understanding, right? When Allah Azza wa Jalla commands the believers to put their reliance and trust in Him, look at the verbiage that Allah Azza wa Jalla uses. Allah says, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ. Look at the hikmah, look at the eloquence of the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling you to rely on Him and put your trust in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then He refers to Himself with two attributes that show you why He's deserving to be trusted, why He's deserving to be resorted to at all times. And what is that? وَتَوَكَّل, and rely and put your trust upon who? Al-Hayy, the all-living, the one who never dies. That's all you need to hear. Everyone around you is going to die. Everyone around you got a shot clock on top of their heads. It's going to expire soon. There's a timer on top of every single person's head, no matter how much they have to their name, no matter how much they're running this dunya, there's a timer on their head, and it's going to expire sooner or later. All Allah needed to tell you is what? He is the all-living. There's no timer with Allah. And when everything perishes, who remains? Allah. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ajib. This is what it means to do tadabbur and tafakkur of Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is why Allah Azza wa Jalla needs to be priority in our lives. This is why we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need someone that carries these divine qualities that no other creation can. Tayyib. So he brought the ayat that shows to us that Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised the servants an answer as long as they come forth with their needs. Let's continue. وقال أمير المؤمنين عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه أنه قال إني لا أحمل هم الإجابة ولكن هم الدعاء فإذا ألهمت الدعاء فإن الإجابة معه. And look, these people walk the same earth we're walking, but wallahi the way they looked at life is totally different. Look at the fiqh of Umar ibn Khattab when he is mentioning some of the virtues of the dua. He says radiallahu anhu, he says, I don't stress over the answer of my supplication. Right? Some of us, when we supplicate, when we make dua, we're walking around talking about what? Inshallah, Allah Azza wa answer my dua. I hope Allah Azza wa make dua that Allah answers my supplication, Ya Muhammad. Right? Sometimes they'll go to a shaykh or someone that seems to be righteous or a scholar, be like, Ya shaykh, please ask Allah Azza wa to answer my dua. Been making dua for. Right? That's what happens nowadays. Umar says, I'm not worried about the answer that will come with my supplication. The only thing that I'm stressed about is me coming with the asking, me coming with the supplication. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised an answer as long as I supplicate. Today we're worried about what? Today we supplicate and we're worried about the answer. That shows you that we're not certain. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, we don't have a proper understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the issue. This man radiallahu anhu says, all I'm worried about is getting the tawfiq to be able to make dua. As long as I make the dua, Allah has bestowed a great virtue upon me, and now Allah has promised to answer me. So as long as I make dua, I'm guaranteed a what? An answer. Now the answer of your dua, because people are going to ask this question. The answer of your dua can come in many different shapes and forms and sizes. The ulama break it down into 3 ways that your dua can be answered. Right? The first thing is that Allah Azza wa Jalla grants you simply what you asked for. That's the first way Allah Azza wa Jalla can answer your supplication. That Allah grants you what you ask for. طيب? There's 3 ways that your dua can be answered. That's the first way. The second is that Allah Azza wa Jalla purposely does not give you what you're asking for and delays your reward for the hereafter. So that's number 2. So number 1, either Allah just flat out gives you what you're asking for. The second is Allah Azza wa Jalla purposely does not give you what you're asking for, but instead He gives you the hereafter. Now, Some may say, طيب, this is oxymoron. You just told me as long as I ask, I'll get an answer. It's contradictory. And you're telling me right now that there's a possibility that what I ask will not be fulfilled. Okay? So how do we understand this? The facilitator of this dunya is Allah Azza wa Jalla. The most wise is who? Okay. Our wisdom, if we have it, is what? Is restricted. It's limited. Deficient. Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Hakim, the wise one. Whatever wisdom you may have, it will never come close to the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Right? Things will occur in the dunya that seem to be, in appearance, seem to be what? Evil. Seem to be what? Turmoil. But who decreed for it to happen? Allah Azza wa Jalla. I may not see a wisdom in it right then and there, but it fell in the universe of Allah. It occurred in the universe of Allah. Nothing occurs in this universe except Allah Azza wa Jalla willed for it to occur. It may seem to be evil from face value, but if it fell in this dunya, there's a wisdom that we don't see. And from your belief in Allah, from your understanding of Allah Azza wa Jalla, is that if it fell, if it occurred in the dunya, there's a wisdom behind it, whether I see it or not. You must keep on walking with that mentality. So, taking that and applying that to this specific answer, where Allah does not grant you what you're asking for, but He saves your reward for the hereafter. Perhaps what you're asking for, in reality, is not good for you. Maybe you're asking for a job. Let's talk about things that are practical. Maybe you're asking for a job. Maybe you're asking for a specific business venture to follow through. Maybe you're asking for a spouse. You want this person, you're interested in this individual. Right? Maybe you're asking to migrate to a certain place or a new house. You ask for it and it doesn't fall through. Immediately, your mentality should be, Allah Azza wa Jalla saw that there was no khair in this decision. If it has been removed from my plate, and I had so much motivation and passion towards it, but it's been removed from my life plan, the Muslim who has submitted to Allah Azza wa Jalla says, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Allah decreed for this to not to occur. Allah removed it and repelled it from me because perhaps it was not good for my deen or dunya. It was not good for my hereafter. It was not good for my well-being. So Allah did not give me purposely what I asked for. And with this mentality, I also carry the understanding that Allah will give me what is better. Allah will give me what is better. And what is better than having your reward delayed to the hereafter? In the hereafter, when the people see the value of the reward and the bliss of the people of paradise, they're going to wish that they lived the most miserable life so that they can be paid back in the akhirah. That's how grand the akhirah is. Everyone with me? So that's the second way your su'al could be, your supplication could be answered. The third way is that Allah Azza wa Jalla grants you what you asked for and grants you the hereafter. So number one is Allah simply grants you what you supplicated for. Number two is Allah does not grant you what you asked for and saves your reward for the hereafter. Number three is that Allah combines between giving you what you asked for and preparing a reward for you in the hereafter. What's the wisdom behind this reward? Let's say that the supplication that you're making is something that is solely dunya related. Has nothing to do with ibadah, just for the sake of argument. If Allah grants you what you're asking for, okay? What is the wisdom behind Allah also giving you reward in the hereafter? Let's say, just for the sake of argument, this is something that's solely dunya. It's not haram, it's not prohibited, it's not evil, right? But it's something that has nothing to do with worship. You ask for something, has nothing to do with worship, it's totally permissible, right? Allah grants it to you, right? And you were from the people that Allah answered his call or her call, and also has prepared a reward for you in the hereafter based on your supplication. What is the wisdom in giving you that reward? Allahu Akbar. Bas. The supplication itself, not only was it dua, you asking Allah to provide you a bachelor's degree, mathalan. You asking Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant you this job. You asking Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant you that car. There's a dream car, and it's something that you've put your mind to for the longest. And you're asking Allah to grant it to you. There's nothing wrong with this. Right? You just understanding and acknowledging that the one who can grant you what you're looking for is Allah, and making that move to put your hands up towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you sincerely ask Him knowing that no one else can get it to you other than Him, that is from the most beloved things to Allah. Even if what you're asking for is mubah. Has nothing to do with ibadah. Look, this Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur. Allah Azza wa Jalla multiplies these deeds, man. Allah takes what seems to be so insignificant in action and He multiplies it in ways you would never imagine. And this is the Lord we disobey behind closed doors. This is the Lord that we don't mind crossing His boundaries for the sake of a quick temptation or a quick satisfaction, whatever it may be. Allah understand. And this, on the other end, this Lord has made it so easy to attain His pleasure. Has made the antidote to attain His reward and His mercy so accessible. And this is how we are. May Allah pardon us. May Allah pardon us. Naktafi, let's continue and we'll get to the questions. طيب? طيب. So we just ended with the statement of Umar ibn al-Khattab رضي الله عنه. ثم قال وعن مطرف بن الشخير قال تذكرت ما جماع الخير فإذا الخير كثير الصوم والصلاة وما أشبه وإذا هو في يد الله سبحانه وتعالى وإذا أنت لا تقدر على ما في يد الله سبحانه إلا أن تسأله فيعطيك. عجيب. This is what we just mentioned right now. فإذا جماع الخير الدعاء. Al-Mutarrif ibn Shakhir, the famous quote that shows from the greatest benefits of the supplication, he mentions and he says in summary that I have sat and pondered, we talked about this at the beginning of the class, I've sat and pondered over the khair that this dunya has to offer, and I found nothing greater than worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I've also came to the understanding that anything that is considered to be worship is not attained except that Allah has given me the ability and the assistance and the aid to perform it. Hence, the greatest thing that I can do is ask Allah. I have no power in bringing khair my way. I have no power in bringing good my way. That is from the greatest pillars of being a servant. You have no power in bringing forth good. If good comes your way, who do you attribute it to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have no, that is what it means to be a servant. Any good that comes your way, the first thing you do is what? Alhamdulillah. هذا من الله. قال سبحانه وتعالى في سورة النحل قال سبحانه وما بكم من نعمة فمن الله. And whatever blessing comes your way, understand this came from one source. Who? Allah Azza wa Jalla. So therefore the greatest thing that I can do in this dunya is be busied with asking Allah. Because whatever I need is in the hands of Allah. As long as I acknowledge that Allah has His power and I've attached myself and my needs towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the greatest mindset to be moving with. May Allah make us from these people. وفي باب التزكية صح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال في دعائه اللهم آت نفسي تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. Now the Imam has brought us some of the benefits and the wisdoms of supplication, has brought us some ayat, has brought us some of the aqwal from the statements of the companions, right? And also some of the explanations and the commentary of the scholars who had a proper understanding of this religion. Now he goes back to our Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Now he's beginning to show us the practicality and the tie between supplication and attaining the purification of the soul. He mentions and he says that it has been reported and it's been authenticated that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam used to busy himself with a specific supplication. عليكم أن تحفظوا هذا الدعاء يا أخوان. Upon you, memorize the supplication. Right? The supplications where the Prophet ﷺ used to say, اللهم آت نفسي تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. This is the Prophet ﷺ, the greatest man to walk, the one who was given revelation, the one who was able to speak to Allah with no intermediary. Subhanallah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? He used to make the supplication and say what? Oh Allah, grant my soul piety. آتي نفسي تقوى. Oh Allah, grant my soul piety. وزكها, and purify it. Oh Allah, cleanse it. Who's making this dua, Ali? Who's making this dua? Are you with me or zoning out, brother? Who's making this dua? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, oh Allah, grant my soul piety and purify it. You're the best one from those who can purify. أنت وليها ومولاها. You're the one who owns it. Guardianship from you subhanahu wa ta'ala, it belongs to you. You're the one who owns my affair, facilitates my affair. Look at this submission in this dua. And this is from the greatest men. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the one who has been promised Jannah. alayhi salatu wasalam, he is breaking himself down for Allah. He is exerting his need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's saying, oh Allah, cleanse my soul, grant me piety. You're the one who is responsible for it. No one else will be able to attain it other than through the direction, the avenue of you, Ya Allah. You're the one who owns my soul. Cleanse it, Ya Allah. This is Nabiyukum sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is your prophet making this dua. Sah. So this was from the one of the things that he brought, rahimahullah ta'ala. وفي هذا الدعاء إشارة وتنبيه على أن تزكية النفوس بيد الله علام الغيوب وأن مفاتيحها الأعظم هو الدعاء والافتقار إلى الله تعالى. Like we just mentioned, that this hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام shows that this end goal of purifying your soul is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it also shows how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam broke himself down for Allah and understood he is nothing without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there was any man who was able to be self-sufficient, it would have been him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet he was from those who expressed his need the most to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's what a servant is. And you will not attain success until you show that you need Allah subhanahu.
ولهذا كان أكثر دعاء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يقول يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك.
And also he also brings another instance from the seerah of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. And from the things that was reported that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام used to busy himself in supplication with the most is he would say, "O turner of the hearts." Who's the turner of the hearts? The state of your heart being sound or your heart being corrupt is in the hands of whom? Of course, you take the means to keep your heart sound. You take the means to avoid any type of evil conduct and evil characteristics and qualities. That's what Islam teaches us. Islam teaches us to embody characteristics and traits of piety, of righteousness. And Islam shows us how to attain these affairs. But Islam also reminds you and says, yes, the means are in your hands, but understand that the one who allows this to fall in the first place and occur is whom? Allah Jalla Ala. That's why the Prophet ﷺ kana yaqul, "O turner of the hearts, keep my heart firm on your religion." And if there's anyone who would have been saved from any type of misguidance, who would have been? Rather, he was saved from misguidance, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet he heard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he is from the people who enter paradise, from the first of those who enter paradise. And this is from the greatest ad'iyah he used to make. "O turner of the hearts, keep me firm on your religion." This is a prophet. He gets revelation. Quran is being revealed to him. He sees miracles left and right. And he's still asking Allah to keep him firm. What does this show you? He knows that his affairs are in the hands of Allah. Hence, this is why he's doing his best, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to remain upon the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah is pleased with you, nothing's stopping you, except death. The only thing that's in your way is what? Death. And if you die whilst Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you, now success has opened to you in a manner that you've never imagined. And that's another topic for later on, inshallah ta'ala. So now, rahmatullahi alayhi, he brings some of the ayat, and we're almost done with this chapter, alhamdulillah. Na'am. He brings some of the ayat that show that cleansing the soul, the purification of the soul, which is the main topic that we're discussing today, is in the hands of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says multiple times in the Quran. Allah says في سورة النساء وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Allah says and reminds us and shows us how weak we are as humans and how much we're in need of Allah Azza wa Jalla's guidance. Allah says, and if it wasn't for the bounty and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you all, then you guys would have fell into the plots of shaitan majority of the time. Who has saved you from the plots of shaitan? Who has saved you from the plots of the fawahish that you see in front of you? Who has saved you from the plots of drugs, from the plots of these evil places and these evil tendencies and these evil hobbies? Who saved you from it? Who has caused you to put a barrier between you and these tendencies, you and these lifestyles? Who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jalla. Understand, ya ikhwan? And that's what Allah is saying here. And if it wasn't for Allah Azza wa Jalla, you would have been following the plots of shaitan immensely. But who protected you? Allah. Allah says in another ayah, قال سبحانه وتعالى ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته ما زكى منكم من أحد أبدا ولكن الله يزكي من يشاء. Allah says في سورة النور, when he's talking about the companions, he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if it was not for the bounty and the favor and the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon you all, none of you guys would have attained purification. But understand and know that purification is in the hands of Allah. Verily, He purifies whom He wills. Allah is upright telling you this matter of purifying the soul is in the hands of who? So how can you how can you busy yourself with the means, praying, fasting, and you're not asking Allah once to rectify your affair? You think you attain anything? You're nothing. We're nothing, ya ikhwan. We're nothing. We're not able to bring forth any good. We're not able to repel any harm. The only way these things are attained in our lives is if Allah Azza wa Jalla decreed for it. This is from tamam al-tawheed. This is what it means, that this is how you know your tawheed is intact. Not that you're able to give me a definition of tawheed and who's opposes in tawheed. No, you're able to apply your tawheed in your life and understand the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and live in a way where you're in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what it means that you have understood tawheed. May Allah make us from these people.
فقال وختم به بقوله فالهداية والإيمان والخير كله بيد الله وحده وقد كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يغرس هذا الأمر في نفوس الصحابة رضوان الله عليهم ويؤكد عليه باستمرار فكان صلى الله عليه وسلم يستهل خطبته ويقول صلى الله عليه وسلم من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له.
He ends the chapter and he says that from the greatest advices that the Prophet ﷺ used to give to the companions is to attach their hearts and their souls with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to understand the importance of having Allah Azza wa Jalla priority in your life. Right? These are from the things that the Prophet ﷺ left with the Sahaba, and this is what they took back after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. Understanding this affair, ya ikhwan. And these are just from the secrets, from the wisdoms, from the treasures of a dua. A dua is not just you asking Allah when you're in a time of hardship. Everything we've been doing for the past hour, everything that we've brought up is to show us the beauty of dua. That's the point of today's class. To one, understand the beauty and the wisdom of dua in our legislation, and number two, understanding its role when trying to attain rectification and purification of the soul, and trying to attain piety. It's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's in the hands of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And from the greatest things that is attained when the servant has attached him or herself to Allah Azza wa Jalla and has put himself and disciplined himself or herself to be in a state where they always resort to Allah at the times of prosperity. Imagine when khair comes your way, when you get that raise, when you get a new house, when you get a new job, when the doors of the dunya have been opened for you, the first thing you do is what as a Muslim? You thank Allah. This is the affair of the Muslim. When prosperity comes your way, what happens? You thank Allah. You're a lot more keen on the blessings in your life, right? And you start to recall the shortcomings. You start to recall how short you came with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say, subhanallah, Allah has given me this, has opened this door for me. Yet I sin like this. I sin in manner of X and Y and Z. I have so many sins on my plate. Yet Allah Azza wa Jalla has still found the karama, has still found the generosity, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to grant me what I've been looking for, to grant me what I've been needing, to put this success in my life. This is your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam قال صلى الله عليه وسلم عجبا لأمر المؤمن. Who knows this hadith? عجبا لأمر المؤمن. This hadith is ajib. He says the affair of the believer is strange, it's shocking. Meaning to the typical person who does not know Allah, who does not understand Islam, who does not know the reality of preparing for the hereafter, when they see how the Muslim lives, they're in a state of shock. Why? Couple of principles. إن أمره كله خير إن أصابته سراء شكر فكان خيرا له وإن أصابته ضراء صبر فكان خيرا له وليس ذاك إلا للمؤمن. The affair of the believer is strange. Why? When you have attained this unsu billah, this utmost, al-unsu billah means utmost reliance in Allah. Meaning it means to be sufficed with Allah. Once you can get to the point where you suffice with Allah Azza wa Jalla, you are on a path of khayr bi'idhnillah. You guys understand what that means to be sufficed with Allah? Meaning you could have no one in the dunya, but just the mere understanding and knowledge that you know Allah is with you and Allah is behind you, and you are doing your best to come with the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has you sufficed. That puts you in a state of being utmost sufficed. And that's why Allah Azza wa says in the Quran, أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدًا. Allah gives a rhetorical question in the Quran. Is Allah not sufficient for His servants? What's the answer to this?
What's the answer? بالعربي. ما الجواب؟ بلى. أليس الله بكاف عبده? Is Allah Azza wa Jalla not sufficient for His servant? Of course He is. No, rather He is sufficient for His servant. And Allah Azza wa Jalla brought down this verse at the time when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam were migrating and running away from Quraysh. At a time where so much fear was in both of their hearts. Right? If Allah is with you, what else do you want? You're sufficed. You're done. Your affair is taken care of. هذا هو. The mu'min, if prosperity comes his way, the first thing he does is thanks Allah. He attributes it back to Allah Azza wa Jalla. He does not take any credit. He says it is from Allah alone. It is from Allah's bounty alone. It is from Allah's grace alone. It's from Allah's mercy alone. That's what the believer does. And when the hardship and the calamity and the trial comes the believer's way, what does he do? What does she do? Sabr. Patient. Look at the people that don't have Islam. What happens when their bank account starts multiplying? When money comes their way, what do? What do they do? You guys live here. This is real, the reality. We'll say it if they're here. This is not speaking ill of them. This is what happens to them. They get lost. Money comes their way. The dunya comes their way. The people that don't know God, the people that don't understand that this life is temporary, this materialistic stuff is meant to deter you from reality. What happens when the dunya, when just the slightest door of the dunya opens for them? What happens? They go crazy. They start falling into every form, every accessible avenue of evil. Drugs, dealing with my money haram, haram business, scamming people, the opposite gender, the party life, the clubbing, yes or no? This is what happens when they have money. But the mu'min, what does he do? Once the blessing comes, what do they do? Alhamdulillah. First, thanking Allah. Two, attributing to Allah, freeing him or herself from any type of ability and attaining the khair that came his way. Number two. Number three, the good that came his way or her way, he only uses it solely for the pleasure of Allah and will never dare bring it close to the prohibitions of Allah. Understand? See how the lifestyle of these two people are totally different? All from just understanding the principle of Allah. When the disbeliever, we're about to end inshallah. When the one who does not know Allah, and does not understand that there's a hereafter that we are preparing for, when a calamity comes their way, they lose a loved one. They lose some money. Whatever an illness comes their way, they've been told they have some sort, may Allah protect us all and give us all health. They've been told that they have some sort of terminal illness. What happens to these people? The people that don't know God. What happens? Their life starts going down a ditch. They don't know how to hold themselves anymore. Right? They become depressed. The state of anxiety increases and it skyrockets. Yes or no? That's what happens. We're not belittling these affairs, by the way, ikhwan. This is not me belittling them. We acknowledge that these are serious problems within our societies. But we're talking about why it's present. We're talking about why it's present. But for the believer, the one who understands Allah, the one who's taken the time to cleanse his or her soul with the religion and the way of life of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and has fully attached themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the calamity comes their way, what do? What do they say? Sabr. He becomes patient. She's patient. What does Allah say? They say what when the calamity comes their way? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They're patient. When the calamity comes their way, it stinks. It's bitter. You're a human. It's supposed to hurt. Your prophet was hurting when the calamities came in the way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lost so many of his loved ones in his life. The calamities came and it hurt him. But he was optimistic. This is what the people that don't know Allah don't have. They're not optimistic at the time of calamity. This is from the benefits of knowing Allah. When the calamity comes your way, not only are you equipped to take on the calamity, but it makes you a stronger person. Yes or no? That's what happens, and many of us can probably relate to this today. How many calamities came our ways? How many calamities came our ways? And today, while we are sitting in this masjid today, we think back to how our life was 1 year ago, 2 years, 3, 5, 10 years ago. And what caused me to change my life and begin practicing in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was a calamity, was a hardship, was me losing a loved one, was me getting bodied, was me, whatever it may be. Something came my way, it hurt me, it stung, but it caused me to go back to Allah. And now my faith is greater than ever. Or now my faith is stronger than it was before. That right there is only for the believer. Optimism left and right. Optimism left and right. And this is what happens when you get acquainted with this methodology of resorting to Allah at all times. That's the benefits of a dua, ya akhwan. And that's the status it carries in our religion. And this is why it's given so much emphasis. What we did, we barely touched on it. We tried to talk about some of his virtues and some of his benefits, its necessity in our faith, why we need to busy ourselves with it. Walillahi alhamd. Inshallah ta'ala, that's what has been attained, bifadlillah, by the mercy and the bounty of Allah Azza wa Jalla alone. And inshallah ta'ala, we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us from those who prioritize supplicating towards Allah and understand the virtue and the magnitude of supplication in our religion, and to make us from those who ask Allah Azza wa Jalla at the time of prosperity and at the time of adversity. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make Iman something that becomes tranquil in our hearts, has been beautified in our souls, and allow us to be from those who will live a lifestyle that's in accordance to an Iman, and to make us most importantly from those who return back to Allah only except that we are in a state of Iman, in a state that Allah Azza wa Jalla is pleased with us. Allahumma ameen. Sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wa'adana, forgive us, ya ikhwan, for prolonging, right? We just want to make sure that we mention all the points that need to be mentioned, and express the benefit as much as possible. So forgive us, a couple minutes of waiting won't affect us too much, inshallah. Jazakum Allahu khairan. If there's any questions, right after the salah. Tayyib, ba'da salah. Because they're going to give me trouble, akhi. It's 5 minutes back to iqamah. Allah yazikum khair.
أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيده فشربوا منه إلا قليلا منهم فلما جاوزه هو والذين آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله
والله مع الصابرين. ولما برزوا لجالوت وجنوده قالوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. فهزموهم بإذن الله. وقتل داود جالوت وآتاه الله الملك والحكمة وعلمه مما يشاء. ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى. فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى. وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى. يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها. إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين الحمد لله بفضل الله only with the permission and the aid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone we were able to complete the second of the 10 principles on this journey of purifying the soul with Lillahi alhamd. And we're able to discuss, for those who came for the salah and weren't able to catch the class, we were able to discuss the reality of a dua and some of the secret treasures and wisdoms behind supplicating. Something that we have perhaps maybe even at best turned into a typical daily tendency of ours. Maybe if Allah Azza was given us tawfiq, maybe we're indulged in making dua and supplication, but some of us are maybe missing some of some are missing the proper understanding and the fruits and the sweetness behind a dua. So we ask Allah Azza wa Ta'ala to benefit from what we have learned and to keep on increasing us in knowledge. Ameen ya Rabbi. Briefly we'll take questions if there's questions regarding the class. It's regarding the class. You asked, we had a question for Sahih Shaykh. Wa alaikum salam. You have a friend that he's Christian.
This is the question he asked me. He said, why is it that most of the Muslim countries are suffering? War, natural disaster, and all this.
Jameel. This is a muhadara. That's a lecture. It's a whole lecture. The brother asked me, Allah bless him. It's a very good question. Perhaps even relevant today. Muslims believe in Allah. And you walk around preaching belief in Allah. Yet all of the Muslim countries are in turmoil. All the Muslim countries are suffering. All the Muslim countries are broken apart. This is what it looks like from what the people say. Yes or no? So basically they bring this doubt or this shubha or this lack of understanding, a best case scenario, to go ahead and fight this whole methodology of Islam. You guys believe in Allah and He's supposed to be on your side, but all your countries are suffering. What's going on? Doesn't add up. The answer to this, as Muslims, first and foremost, as Muslims, is that هذه الدنيا ليست لنا. This dunya is not for us. This dunya is not for us. And this dunya is daru ikhtibar. This dunya is a period of, is a stage of being tested. Allah says in the Quran, الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم. هذا سبب خلقه سبحانه والحكمة بخلقه سبحانه الابتلاء. The wisdom of Allah creating death and life and everything in between is what? So that He may test you guys. Trial, tribulated. Now so that the Muslims forget, I'm not saying forget the other people that are non-Muslims, but we need to worry about the Muslims having a proper understanding of this doubt before we worry about how to respond to a Christian. Okay? That's the first thing. This dunya is not for the righteous. This dunya is not for the pious. If you are someone who is Muslim and you acknowledge that the hereafter is the true life, yes or no? And that this dunya is just a transitional period. And this dunya is meant to be a test in where we are placed in the hereafter. May Allah make our abode the Jannah. Ameen. Okay? That's what you know as a Muslim. That's from the tenets of your faith. Right? What did the Prophet ﷺ say in the hadith that we mentioned in the beginning of the class? Ad-dunya tu ish mal'unatun. The Prophet says what the dunya is what? Is cursed. And everything in it is what? وَمَلْعُونَ مَا فِيهَا. Like this is the Prophet ﷺ speaking. And he's speaking in such a manner, in an aggressive manner, to lay a point. Allah, the Prophet is saying something is cursed. You know what it means for something to be cursed? When it comes to Islam, al-la'n. When we talk about cursed in Islam, what does it mean? It means that whatever thing is being cursed has been taken far away from the mercy of Allah. So this dunya is far away from the mercy of Allah. What is the only logical proof that you need? These people want to look at the waqi', right? They want to look at the reality. Oh, the Muslims, you guys believe in Islam, but you guys are suffering. Okay, let's look at the people that have the dunya. Let's start naming the people that have the dunya. How many of them are depressed? How many of them are suicidal? How many of them cannot find happiness? How many of them have the whole dunya to their hands and more? And they're complaining. Their tweets about depression. Their tweets not satisfied. That's what they're all doing. All these rappers that people are listening to, all these famous people, all these people that have the money, none of them are happy. None of them are happy.
And most of them, not all of them, most of them have no morals. I'm talking about common morals, not even Islamic, common morals. Right? That shows you if you are put in the mix of the dunya without a proper understanding of the real life, which is the hereafter, it's only going to take you far away. It's only going to take you far away. And for the Muslim, this is not a place to stay. Who are the best people to walk? The best men, the most righteous men to walk were who? Who? The prophets and the messengers, yes or no? The most righteous of people, the people most beloved to Allah are who? The prophets and the messengers. Yes? Agreed? Any discrepancy? Okay, let's move on. Give me one of them that had an easy life. Give me one. One of them that had, was not trialed or tribulated. All of them, not only were they tested, the worst of tests. Tests that me and you cannot fathom. 80% of them had their own families turn their back on them. And treat them as enemies, yes or no? Is there a bala? Is there a calamity worse than this? Is there a calamity worse than that? No. These people had civilizations fighting them. Civilizations turning their backs on them. Musa and Harun. Fir'aun and the people that were coming for Harun. None of these people lived an easy life, ya ikhwan. And these, without a doubt, no matter what religion, they will tell you that these are the most righteous people. Yet all of them lived lives of what? Hardship, trial, tribulation. What does that tell you? That the Sunnah of Allah, with the people who abide by His legislation, it only makes sense. If you're living for the hereafter, I'm going to test you a little bit in this dunya. You got to go through something. You're going through 60, 70 years max of living, and what's on the other side is eternal bliss, if Allah puts His mercy upon us. Sah wa la la? Is that fair, yes or no? 60, 70 years max of working hard, and at the other end is eternal bliss for eternity. Is that fair, yes or no? In the court system, is that fair? Yes or no? Answer, ikhwan. Or does the question not make sense? If you go to a courthouse, right, and someone comes with 60 years worth of good deeds, 60 years of community service, right? Is it fair for the judge to give the verdict and say, this person is deserving of eternal happiness, eternal bliss? Is that fair? That's not fair. What's fair is he gets 60 years worth of whatever he put forth. Yes or no? You're dealing with Allah. 60 years of hard work and living by His life, He's trading you what? Jannah, eternal bliss, true happiness, true success. That's not fair. That's Allah's mercy. And it only makes sense if that's what you're working towards, that you get trialed a bit in this dunya. You get tested a bit in this dunya. You want to make 6 figures today. You want to make 6 figures today. Typically, what do you have to do? You have to work hard. You got to go to school, 12th grade, 4 years of college. If you want to make more money, going to a medical school, going to a different practice, whatever it may be. Almost 20 years of just studying, of busying yourself studying. To do what? To get some sort of financial comfort. Yes or no? You have to put in work. You have to exit your comfort zone to go ahead and get that reward. Yes or no? And that's with the dunya. That's what you have to work for the dunya. You have to be trialed in the dunya in order to get what you're looking for. Yes or no? Is this how we live? So how about the akhirah, which does not even compare? So for the Muslim, we need to understand that. For the Muslim, we need to understand that. The Muslim also understands that Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Hakim. Allah Azza wa Jalla is the most wise. Meaning whatever He allows to fall in this dunya, there's a wisdom behind it. Even if it's with the calamity. Even if it's with the calamity. Subhanallah. Right? There will be a calamity that comes forth. That to the appearance of the people, it seems to be something that is what? That is horrible and horrific. But years later, an uprising of a civilization, the uprising of the Islamic Ummah, the uprising of modernization, whatever it may be. Allah brings khair from ways that we do not imagine. Understand? So this is just out of a lack of understanding the proper belief in Allah Azza wa Jalla. Right? Allah allows things to fall. Right? So that we are tested, we are trialed, so that He sees how we react, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He allows the evil to occur in order for a greater wisdom to come out of it. This is how the Muslim understands this question. Right? As for someone who does not know Allah, we need to start talking about who is Allah first. Perhaps there's a lack of understanding in the reality of what is Allah. They don't understand the divinity of Allah and the greatness of Allah and the qualities and the characteristics that He carries. He's not going to be able to understand us talking about His wisdom and us talking about His mercy and the likes. So we need to set that foundation first. But this is for all the Muslims who probably get this question and you watch debates online. That's just very brief. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Ameen. Pass them the answer if you can. But help come to the common ground of understanding that there's a creator. Does he acknowledge there's a creator? He's thinking about converting. Let's talk after me and you, inshallah. Okay? You had a question, yes? Mhm. Yes, yeah. Good, good, good. Okay. The brother asked that we have a hadith that notify us and tell us that there are specific times or specific places where the dua, generally speaking, has a more يعني, a higher chance of being accepted. Yes or no? Do we know this principle in our religion? What are some of these times, for example? The last hour of Friday. Last hour of Friday, yes? The last third of the night, منتصف الليل, الثلث الأخير من الليل. Right? What else do we have? The day of Arafah, for example. صح? While the person is fasting, the one who is fasting, their dua is not rejected. Right? And we can keep on going. These are some of the principles we understand in our religion, yes or no? Okay, طيب. Now, the question is, we have this concept. Why do we need this concept, specific times being magnified to make dua in, when the principles already that Allah answers our call? When the principles already what? That Allah answers our call. We talked about what are the different ways that Allah's answer could fall, yes or no? صح ولا لا? Okay? So that's one. That's the first thing. We talked about how Allah can either give you what you're asking for, Allah can go ahead and give you your reward in the akhirah instead, or Allah can give you the dunya and the akhirah based on your su'al, based on your question. Okay? Now, why are there specific times where there is what? That there is more emphasis on the dua. These specific times, if you look at all of them, there's something significant about them. There's something significant about them. Right? Whether it's the last third of the night. What's significant about the last third of the night? Do you know, Ilyas? Allah descends. We don't need to get into this right now. But Allah Azza wa Jal descends to the last heaven, the heaven closest to the earth. We know this. بِمَا يَلِيقُ بِجَلَالِهِ وَكَمَالِهِ. In a way that befits His majesty and perfection, we don't need to ask questions. Allah descends down. This is what He told us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Due to this, the last third of the night is a significant time. Because this is when Allah Azza wa Jal is closest to the what? To the creation. بِذَاتِهِ subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The last hour of Al-Jum'ah. Why? Because Al-Jum'ah is from the most beloved days to Allah. Yes or no? From the most beloved days to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And it is the day that there's many different virtues. The creation of Adam. The day of judgment is going to arise on that day. That's when revelation was given. All these things. There's so many virtues of Friday. Right? So to magnify the sha'n of Friday, there's the hadith that tells us, seek the last hour before Friday runs out. Seek the last hour before Friday exits. And use it for dua. This is all, the reason why the dua is emphasized in these times is to, in reality, emphasize and elaborate on the greatness and the wisdom of the time periods that are being mentioned. Right? It is to show you initially that that time period is beloved to Allah Azza wa Jalla. It is a time period that you should go ahead and cater towards and make and value in your life. And from the greatest ways that Allah can do this to you is by telling you what? Your supplication is accepted here. And the principle goes on, but the reason why we have specific times is so that there's an emphasis on those time periods. Does that make sense, Ikhwan? Ammar, you look at me like you're confused. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Okay, طيب. Let's go ahead and scoot back so that Ammar can understand, and maybe majority of you guys. اصبر يا إخوان. صبر. اصبر. No, wait. Let's continue with what we have. Okay? Let's continue with what we have. طيب. All these time periods that have came in multiple and various hadith that talk about the dua being accepted, or more of a likeliness of the dua being accepted, is done from the wisdoms of this, is that Allah Azza wa Jalla is putting emphasis on those time periods, on the last hour of Jum'ah, on the last third of the night, on the day of Arafah. And the best way Allah does this by showing us the value of those days or the value of those places is by telling you what? Your dua is accepted. Right? Just by saying that shows you that that is a time that Allah Azza wa Jalla is signifying. Right? So by just merely telling you your dua is accepted at this time, shows you how important that time period is to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is it shows you that the consistent state of the servant, no matter in his greatest or in his lowest, whether it's the best place in the world or the worst, is your state is dua. The thing that you should be looking forward to is dua. Whether you're in the most righteous of time periods or the righteous of places or the worst of them, is to always busy yourself with dua. Does that make sense? Generally. طيب. نعم شيخ. And say it again. And you make dua. Yeah. بالضبط. Ah, your language. Okay. Jameel. The uncle asked, may Allah bless him, he said, it is known that from the greatest times that you can make dua is when the servant is in what? Sujood, prostration. We agree here. Okay? Now, the uncle mentions that there are sometimes some things that I want to supplicate for that I may not be able to utter in the Arabic language. And the origin in your salah is that you're restricted to specific phrases to say. Yes? Your salah is a restricted ibadah. The things you're allowed to say is restricted, right? From the only times that you have some sort of flexibility is when? In the sujood. Now you're able to bring your own supplication, as long as it's supplication, right? Now, what if I want to supplicate for something, but I cannot utter it in Arabic, right? Am I allowed to supplicate in another language? A great group of the ulama, like the Hanabila, from them Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, a lot of the ulama of this time, Ibn Kathir mentioned this, Imam al-Dhahabi mentioned this, a lot of the ulama say that you are allowed to, because this is hal al-durura, this is a necessity. You want to make dua, and the state of the servant is making dua and supplicating to Allah Azza wa Jalla. If he or she is not able to bring that dua in the salah, where it's supposed to be in Arabic in origin, they're not able to do so, right? It's not in your capability, khalas. You are allowed to resort to the language that you are able to ask in. Wallahu ta'ala. Say it again. Even if it's in the fard salah. But here's the thing. If you go to other ulama, some ulama may say no. Some ulama may say no, right? And they have a legitimate reason behind this. They have a legitimate reason behind this. Both opinions are valid. Both opinions have proof, right? But based on who you ask, like for example, you come to the imam of this masjid, the imam of this masjid telling you it is allowed, mathalan, right? You go by that. Right? You go by that. Right? Wallahu ta'ala. طيب. ها شيخنا. اي. Which time? The last third of the night. The hour. Okay, those are two different times. Okay. What are the exact times? Okay, طيب. Okay, now I understand the question. The uncle asked, Jazakallahu khairan. He said, you spoke about the last hour of Jum'ah and the last third of the night. And these are two times where we should hasten towards dua. Yes? He said, what are these hours? Are they the hours on the clock? Are they the last 3 hours of the night? Is it the last actual legitimate hour of Friday? Right before Maghrib, or what is it exactly? طيب. Let's talk about the easy one first. The last third of the night, this is calculated by doing the following. Look at the current Maghrib time, look at the current Fajr time, right? And split that into thirds. Look at Maghrib, because that's when the night begins, and look at Fajr, because that's when the night ends, right? That is your night as a Muslim. This is the night of the Muslim, okay? Go ahead and take that total number and split it into thirds, right? So let's say the total number, I'm not saying now, let's say the total number is 9, right? You split it into thirds, so that's 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours, yes or no? So whatever last 3 hours before Fajr are, that is the last third of your night. Does that make sense? This is how we calculate the last third of the night. Understood, guys? Any questions? طيب. That's the last third of the night. اصبر يا شيخنا. Let me finish the question. طيب. No, wait. اصبر. Let's finish the question. And then we'll get. طيب. This is the last third of the night. طيب. The last hour of Friday. Okay? There is discrepancy on when this hour is. Okay? We're not going to do that here. Right? If we're going by the opinion that it is the last hour of Friday, they say that whenever Asr comes in and whenever Maghrib is, whatever gap is in between the two, this is the last hour. The last hour that's mentioned in the hadith لفظا الساعة فالتمسوه في آخر ساعة في يوم الجمعة وكما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Sa'a doesn't mean the actual legitimate hour, 160 minutes. No. Sa'a just means a time period في لغة العرب. The Arabs, when they say Sa'a, it could just be referencing a general time period. So آخر ساعة في جمعة, right? If you go with the opinion, it's the last hour of Jum'ah. That last hour is the last period before the night enters, which is between Asr and Maghrib. So they say any time between Asr and Maghrib. والله تعالى. طيب جميل. حياكم الله. الله يحفظكم. I'm just trying to focus on the questions that have to do with, these are from, what's on my phone is from the sisters. So I just need to focus on these if they have to do with the question, if they have to do with the topic. What advice would you give to individuals who are ready to get? Would it be considered bid'ah if you made it a habit to make dua after every single prayer? No, it's not bid'ah. You make dua after every salah, ni'immahi. Keep going. It's not bid'ah. It's a great thing to do. And rather it is actual, warad an-Nabi alayhi salatu has been reported by the Prophet alayhi salatu that he used to say that from the best ways you can complete a righteous deed is by what? Making dua. Make dua. Because you just did something that is pleasing to Allah, you have inshallah ta'ala attained Allah's pleasure by doing something He loves, hasten by making dua. End it by making dua. Right? Now to go ahead and say that it is legislated for me to make dua after every salah and this is the sunnah, this is a different issue. No one says this. Right? But as for the permissibility of doing so, there's no restriction. And when and where you can make dua. Only the places that we know, like the hammam, like the bathroom, the restroom, the places where Allah's name cannot be remembered. But as for times, there is no restriction. No restriction. If it is from your ad that you're going through something, and after every of your 5 prayers you're making dua, after every salah, there's nothing wrong with this. Rather, this is something that inshallah bila shak is beloved to Allah. Inna Allah azza wa jalla yuhibbul mulahina fi du'a. Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, says ﷺ, in the authority of Anas, he says, Allah Azza wa Jalla loves those who are persistent and consistent and remain in a state of dua. He wants to see you coming with dua once, twice, thrice. This is what Allah wants to see. Showing that you are in need of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is not a bid'ah. This is not a bid'ah. Allah ta'ala. خلاص نكتفي بهذا. We'll end with this. Inshallah ta'ala, we just wanted to restrict it to the questions that have to do with the topic. Inshallah ta'ala. So Allah Azza wa Jalla. No. How can I get over my obsession with listening to music? طيب, we'll talk about this in one of the halaqat of Friday, after Isha. We have halaqa, we have 5-10 minute reminder after every Isha. We'll talk about one of these days, music and the reality of music, inshallah ta'ala, and the fitna of music, and what the religion says about music, and how to avoid it, inshallah ta'ala. Bi-idhnillah. Allah yahfadhkum. Jazakum Allah khairan. This class remains every Tuesday, between al-Maghrib wal Isha, every Tuesday, inshallah ta'ala. That's the first thing. Second thing, inshallah ta'ala, beginning July 15th, July 15th, the weekend school is going to return. The weekend school here at the Masjid is going to return, inshallah ta'ala. The advertisement should be out by tonight in the group chat. So if you're not in the group chats, and if you're not in the social media, that's the way you'll be informed. Okay, if you want to be informed, you want to get the information, make sure that you have the proper outlets on your device, inshallah ta'ala. If you have any questions, there will be an open house after Eid al-Adha, at the beginning of July 8th. Right? So that's where the parents and the students are invited. There will be a brief presentation on as far as the curriculum, how the things are going to be operating around here, inshallah ta'ala. And most importantly, the opportunity to register will be on the open house day. So right now there's no forms, there's nothing to take care of right now. If you're interested, look when the open house is, which is July 8th. Come with your family, come with the children, and the registration will be on spot. Inshallah ta'ala. Like I said yesterday, I know there's many questions, there's many concerns. Just wait, inshallah ta'ala, be patient, and just wait till open house. And perhaps the questions will be answered then. Inshallah ta'ala. Jazakum Allah khairan. Barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala nabina Muhammad. Wa ala alihi wa sallam.